I want to say it was around 2005 or 2006. I went over to a friend's house. We usually played Call of Duty, some of the early CODs, and Medal of Honor because that was the FPS powerhouse back then. I think I was only like 11 or 12 years old at the time, but we played a different game. That was Halo 2, split screen Halo 2. It was a blast. It was my introduction into the Halo franchise, and from here on out, that was what I played. I just absolutely loved it. Once Halo 3 came about in the Xbox 360, I was there day one, and I've been there since then. It's just a franchise that I have a lot of admiration for. I think honestly one of my favorite Halo experiences is probably Halo Reach, which is a surprise since I know a lot of people didn't care for it as much as at least I do. I think it's extremely underrated, and it was indeed Bungie's last go with the franchise as they moved on to Destiny. And then for the last decade or so, we've had 343 Industry Halo games, and it's just never clicked for me. Halo 4 felt alright. Halo 5 felt like a step back. And then Halo Infinite, I've had mixed feelings since the beginning. I thought the campaign was alright, and then the live service side of this has just been an absolute mess. And that's not to mention the game's development to begin with was an absolute clusterfuck. There was tons of veteran staff that left mid-development, including high-up executives. There was multiple exposés in the game's disastrous development and scaled-back ambition. Then there was the infamous reveal, which ended up resulting in the game being delayed by a whole single year. And finally, when the game did release, it received a mostly positive reception. Still, there was a lot of concerns with the road ahead for Halo Infinite as a live service. And there was also a lot of questions regarding core features of the franchise and why they were not there day one. That includes Forge and campaign co-op. And here in fall of 2022, it's still not here. It's again been delayed to later on in this year. Halo Infinite has been a rough ride thus far. 343 Industries in the past have talked about Halo Infinite as a 10-year journey, and unfortunately the first year has been remarkably unremarkable. And now there are just a lot of questions, a lot of people wondering if 343 Industries is the right fit for Halo moving forward. And that is an interesting question. I think a lot of people like to say that no, 343 Industries, they're extremely passionate about this franchise. But I have to wonder, just because they're passionate doesn't mean that this is the correct fit. Microsoft has been making some big moves the last couple of years. They have brought in some talented studios, and one of them I think could be an interesting fit for a Halo experience, and that would be id Software. Now look, I can recognize that 343 has in fact done some great work with the Halo franchise. In particular, I would look at the Master Chief Collection as an example of that. It started off rough with some issues, but it has come along to be considered by much of the Halo community as probably the best thing that they've produced over the span of the last decade or so. But I just don't think that is enough. When you look to the other major franchises for these consoles, whether that be Nintendo with Zelda and Mario, they give those games as much time as they need to innovate and come out as best as possible. And those games have always been, in many regards, revolutionary. Breath of the Wild 2 is right now getting an extraordinary amount of time with development because they want to make sure they get it right. When you look to Sony with, I would argue, probably God of War and Uncharted, those are games again. Sony makes sure that those experiences get as much time in the oven to be as good as possible. And with Halo, it just hasn't been the case. And I understand that Microsoft has given an extraordinary amount of time to the development of these games, especially with Halo Infinite getting a year-long delay, which is unprecedented within this AAA games industry. But the fact that it needed probably another year it's embarrassing. And I'd honestly argue it shows that 343 is a bit incompetent and there needs to be some changes, whether that be with leadership changing up or having another developer coming in and giving a fresh take on this franchise, which at this point I do think may be needed. Now, to fully grasp the collapse Halo Infinite is and has suffered, it's necessary to understand this collapse is not necessarily new. This recent failure is more so the precedent, the status quo that we've become accustomed to with 343 Industries experiences, which is a problem. This game developer was created with the sole intention to keep this franchise alive and thriving post-Bungie, something that has never happened, but yet Microsoft on multiple occasions over the years has highlighted the importance of Halo flourishing. In 2011, Xbox head Phil Spencer told Games Radar, "If we lose our way with Halo, we lose our way with Xbox, because Halo and the importance of games like Call of Duty and other shooters, that state-of-the-art needs to continue to move forward, and our team at 343 needs to move forward with that. That's always going to be one of our success criteria. Unfortunately, someone will have to tell me where any advancements have been made. Sure, the Master Chief Collection is indeed a bright spot now, but originally it was a buggy disaster, and the newly crafted experiences just have not landed at all. With Halo 4, the franchise enjoyed a fresh start with mediocre results. The campaign was fine, Spartan Ops was whatever, and the multiplayer was just forgettable with some unpopular changes made to the formula. Halo 5 was a bit different, as I think the multiplayer, while not great, did have its moments, and I'd argue the campaign is probably the worst one ever produced. The storyline still to this day frustrates me, and even amazes me with how poorly thought out it was. Then though we get to Halo Infinite. After a year-long delay and a messy development, the game received a mostly positive reception with its campaign from reviewers. It was viewed as being enjoyable with more freedom than ever before, but not necessarily taking the leap some had hoped that this game would finally take in terms of evolving. Regardless, this was supposed to be the beginning. In 2020, before he resigned, studio head Chris Lee had said Infinite was going to be a platform of sorts, hosting content for the future, with Infinite growing over time as the start of the next 10 years for Halo and then building that as we go with our fans and community. Thus, there was no plans for sequels, as Infinite was the sole focus for the foreseeable future. This was the promise that 343 made with Halo Infinite, so expectations were rightfully high, and there was an assumption that 343 was following in the footsteps of what Bungie has done with Destiny 2. Unfortunately, what has followed for the last 9 or so months is a lot of issues, broken promises, and a lack of content. 343 dealt with fixing a horrendous progression system when the free-to-play multiplayer launched in November last year. There was debate and arguments over the battle pass and how slow it took to advance through it. There was debate and arguments over basic customization options being locked behind a stupid amount of grind, all while there was a fancy cosmetic microtransaction store with around $1,000 worth of armor sets and other customization additions available. It was a bad look for 343 and something they spent a considerable amount of time trying to rectify, while also battling accusations that these decisions were done on purpose to influence players into coughing up some extra cash on overpriced cosmetics. Halo and 343 previously enjoyed backlash with the monetization within Halo 5, in particular the use of rec packs, aka loot boxes. Once this controversy was somewhat behind 343, the next one quickly crept up on them, and that was in regards to the lack of content and numerous features delayed. Obviously, it is important to remember the pandemic has and still factors into development timelines being disrupted, but that doesn't excuse the promises and deadlines that 343 have broken and missed. The first 5 or so months of Halo Infinite's post-launch support was a couple of temporary events and game modes, along with Slayer, Free-for-All, SWAT, and Fiesta being added a few months after launch, game modes that really should have been there day one. At the beginning of 2022, 343 went radio silent for a decent amount of time. Promising a roadmap in January, they delivered it in March. The disappointing roadmap of Infinite's Season 2 Lone Wolves confirms some unfortunate suspicions that fans had. Forge and campaign co-op were again being delayed to later in the year, and none of the content coming seemed to be substantial in any way. 2 maps and game modes that were featured in previous games. The community was once again very dismayed and frustrated with 343's lackluster support for Infinite. Now, what followed this was a few months of lacking communication, unpopular nerfs, and a series of bizarre technical issues that 343 were slow to tackle and address. Even a former 343 developer criticized the company for removing certain content from multiplayer and campaign. All of this led to the game's player base tanking, with many fans choosing it was time to abandon ship. Many had had enough with 343. This finally leads to the most recent event, which is the newest roadmaps for Infinite. The fall/winter roadmap includes yet another delay to Forge and campaign co-op, split-screen co-op entirely being cancelled, 2 new maps, a new game mode, and Match XP Beta, whatever that means. That's it for 2022. The next full season begins all the way in March of 2023 and also looks very unimpressive. Season 3's Echoes Within will have 2 new maps, 2 new game modes, a new weapon, and a piece of equipment, along with a bunch of other smaller additions. This is quite frankly embarrassing. Fallout 76 and even Anthem managed to do more in their first couple months than 343 has been able to achieve in almost 1 full year. You can even look at this graphic as a representation of the downgrade that fans are currently dealing with. Halo 5 support almost seems like it was done by an entirely different company. What we're seeing with Infinite feels amateur-like, almost as if this is a developer that has never supported a AAA game before. Now, one particular thing that has ignited rage within the Halo community is the cancellation of split-screen co-op. This is something 343 promised players would be coming, but that has changed. Halo Infinite creative lead Joseph Staten said in a video the other day, "We've had to make the difficult decision to not ship campaign split-screen co-op and take the resources that we would use on that and go after the list and all of the other things." So simply put, 343 lied to the Halo community. Bonnie Ross, the studio head of 343 in 2017 at DICE, said, "We've also had a lot of learnings along the way. You know, when we fell down with the multiplayer launch of Halo the Master Chief Collection, or when we did not put split screen in with Halo 5, I think it's incredibly painful for the community and for us. It erodes trust with the community, as the community is part of our world building. We've had a lot of learnings from that, and I would say that for any FPS going forward, we will have split screen going forward." That's awkward. This point was again reiterated a couple of years later in an E3 2019 blog post from Xbox. What's even more baffling is that players themselves have been able to figure out how to get split screen working through some menu glitches. From the videos shared, 4-person local co-op is possible and working without issues. Why 343 can't officially do this just has to be blamed on being incompetent. Now, yet another thing that has upset the Halo community is remarks made by Live Services Director Sean Barron in a video again from the other day, in which he said,
"We also want an experience that's competitive and fair. We are a very competitive game. That's our DNA. That's who we are, right? You go back all the way to the very first Halo, right? Multiplayer. I mean, it is a highly competitive game. And so we want an experience where players can expect that the game is competitive and fair, and skill and teamwork should be a path to victory, right? The path to victory. That doesn't mean abandoning social players. That's not what that means, but it is about fairness and competition."
Now, the issue with those remarks is the fact that Halo was never, ever, and should never be a competitive-focused experience. It's a party game, and that is how it got so beloved. The former multiplayer design lead of Halo 2 and 3 said as much in tweets from the other day, "Common characteristics of a LAN party. You're playing with people you know and like. There's a wide array of skill and experience. Communication is prevalent and boisterous. There's friendly competition, but the stakes are low. Everyone is having fun. Halo is fantastic in this respect. Our explicit goal with Halo 2 multiplayer was to replicate this experience online. Our goal with Halo 3 multiplayer was to refine this and expand the types of online experiences you could have together. Does this mean Halo has always been competitive?" with a thinking emoji. That was the magic of the Bungie Halo games and might just show the problem here. 343 is yet another developer not understanding their very own franchise. Well, actually, let me clarify. The franchise, though, is passed on to them. As it stands, great things are happening in the Halo community, just not from 343 necessarily. Some of the Forge mode creations from modders that have leaked over the course of the last month are truly remarkable and proves that some great things are coming. I just don't know if it'll be the saving grace that some hope it will be. Forge, though, should be the one bright spot in the bowl of shit that 343 currently find themselves in. It's just a shame that this feature hasn't come sooner. So right now, with the community at a boiling point, we're seeing something that we have not seen before, and that is many questioning if Halo is in the right hands, many wondering if 343 should no longer be the sole developer on Halo experiences. I floated this at the beginning of the video, but id Software is definitely a candidate that I would consider as maybe somebody who could make a good Halo experience. I've seen some people asking maybe one of the Call of Duty developers come in and give their own hand on it, try to shake things up in the future. There are many candidates now under Microsoft that could do something with the Halo franchise, and I think that they could do it probably better than what we've been seeing for the last decade with 343. But yes, the recent events that have happened with Halo Infinite are truly the straw that broke the camel's back. We're seeing articles like this from Forbes' Paul Tassi, "Should Microsoft keep 343 in charge of Halo indefinitely?" And the article goes over pretty much just all of the things that we've talked about throughout this video and concludes with something is clearly not working and something has to change. We're seeing Reddit threads like this, woke up and saw hashtag Fire343 trending, and they go over all of the mistakes that have happened and also some of the good that has come from 343. But they conclude saying, "I think it is extremely fair to ask the question, can 343 Industries handle Halo after not one or two, but 4 failed tries? We as a community are left wondering, is this what it is to become of Halo? Just sit and watch it die, with nothing we can do. As a longtime Halo fan, it pains me so much to see what this franchise has become. This is one of the top posts on the r/Halo subreddit. And then we have numerous tweets which have gone viral. The hashtag Fire343 hashtag has been trending the last day or two. We've seen videos like this popping up about, again, Forge mode, saying, how is it that 343 couldn't launch Infinite with classic map remakes, yet a fan was able to remake Guardian in a short time? It created huge excitement. This is 100% proof that poor decisions are made at 343. They also seem disconnected as a team and don't know what's good for Halo. One of the big Halo YouTubers, Hidden Xperia, saying the Halo franchise still, after all these years, has so much untapped potential. It's just so damn frustrating and tiring seeing none of it being realized. And that is the truth. I think we've been having this conversation for over a decade now, saying that Halo could be something so more, but something's not clicking and something's got to change, and maybe that is the developer. Halo Hub saying the Fire343 trend is just another example of taking things too far. Fire343 Industries won't help Halo Infinite. Reform and restructuring of management is likely what the studio needs to help support developers in outputting a healthy flow of content, not a rebuild from the ground up. Although I honestly think that the last decade is clear evidence that we need more than just a restructure. Because to be fair, 343 Industries has been through its leaders. You gotta remember, before Halo Infinite's launch, and actually over the course of the last 6 years, there's been a lot of veteran lead developers leaving. Hell, even Halo Infinite, I think it was March of this year, the lead multiplayer designer left the company. So I'll leave this to you guys in the comment section. You can debate this out if you think that maybe a restructuring is what Halo needs right now, just with 343 Industries staying on. I am certain, I know that this is something a lot of people have been bringing up. The developers are indeed passionate about this. I'm sure that they probably can do some amazing things if they have the right management in hand. I just think that we're at a point where we need a completely fresh start with a new developer taking charge of this, maybe even on a new engine, because I think Halo needs another soft reboot, something like God of War had. That's what I thought Infinite was supposed to be. That's something that 343 Industries talked about Halo Infinite as if it was a soft reboot for the franchise, but it really wasn't, and it just has suffered so many issues, too many to be honest. But the tweets do go on. We have another user saying, alright, hear me out, hashtag rebuild 343, sounds like 343 Industries lost a lot of talent after Infinite shipped. One of them I just mentioned. 343 Industries needs new blood and better management to keep Infinite rolling. Another user saying, if you hashtag Fire343, the only thing you'll be able to do is have hundreds of people lose their jobs and you'll end up with no Halo game to play. There is no replacement. I beg to differ, because Halo continued after Bungie, and I think it'll continue after 343 Industries, and honestly could have some success if you have other developers jumping in, whether that be the Coalition, id Software, Infinity Ward, Certain Infinity. There are a number of candidates that could come in and I think do a good job with Halo. And this isn't even necessarily the case of you just replacing 343 Industries. I think if you open it up and allow some other developers to come in, maybe make some spin-offs, that's something that I've seen some introducing as ideas. I think that could be great for the franchise. Continuing on, another user is saying, I'm so happy that hashtag Fire343 is actually trending. It's so tiring watching 343 Industries slaughter Halo release after release. Halo needs to be given to another developer ASAP, or it will continue to bleed out and fade away. It's sad that 343 just cannot respect Halo's legacy. Another user saying, don't let anyone tell you it's not okay to call for someone's job. If I failed at my job for 3 weeks in a row, I'd be gone. Imagine getting 10 years. What motivation would there be to be great? Clean house. Hashtag Fire343. Very strong take there. Another user saying, enough is enough. 10 years of mismanagement, 10 years of bad decisions, 10 years of 343. It's time for Microsoft to find a new developer for Halo. Hashtag Fire343. And then yet another post here says, hashtag Fire343. The main problem with Halo right now is that 343 still doesn't understand what Halo is or what made the game so great in the first place. They call Halo 1 a competitive game despite it being made with party and couch co-op in mind. They hired people who hated Halo. And I'll disagree with that last part. I don't think any of these individuals hate Halo. I just think they have a lack of understanding of what the player base actually want from this experience and how to evolve this franchise forward. Because it feels like we've been stuck. We've been stuck for a very, very long time, which is again why something does have to change here. This is probably the first time ever I've seen Halo so divisive and so many opinions opinions being floated around with how this franchise should move forward. And it's hilarious because technically the next 8 or 9 years is supposed to be mapped out, and that is just 343 Industries and Infinite. But I think all of us have come to the conclusion, at least in our minds based on what we've seen, that that's not going to happen at all. And what's to come really is a mystery. Largely that is dependent on how Phil Spencer and his leadership team at Xbox feels about this giant mess. In years past, with each of the failures that 343 Industries has suffered, Phil Spencer and his team have rode the storm out, but I think we've reached a point where that's not entirely possible, and he is going to have to come out and say something, whether that is recommitting to 343 or looking in a new direction. Maybe one that does in fact include 343, but maybe other development studios coming in and having their hand with this franchise, something that I feel is the most logical answer at this point. Anyway, currently Halo is in a very rough spot. There's a lot of divisiveness within the community and a lot of questions about how the franchise moves forward. But I want to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value. And make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm also active on Twitter giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.